Good morning. Um, Nothing really stuck out to me this morning in Proverbs. So I was reading through the Gospel of Mark, chapter 7, verses 5 through 9. And what stuck out to me was the Pharisees and scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands?" And he answered to them and said, "Well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, 'These people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they do worship me, teaching as the doctrines and commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men, the washing of pitchers and cups, and many other such things you do. All too well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition.'" So in verse 5, Jesus is approached by these religious leaders who, about keeping religious tradition, by which they had justified themselves and judged others, being zealous enough to openly approach Jesus about this. Um, but it's a show, that they had been putting on, to be justified by others. Yeah, see, I'm doing this thing, Um, see how good I am. See how righteous I am. I'm holding these traditions. Um, in verses 6 and 7, Jesus quotes Isaiah, rebuking the religious leaders to show their misplaced fervor, of seeking to be outwardly righteous. In Matthew 6, 1 through 5, Jesus tells us that our relationship with God is to be between us and God. Our righteousness is not to be seen by men; it's to be seen by God. We do these things for His good, because we love Him, and to receive good from Him, not from others. And there's a very good reason for this, but I'll get on that here in a little bit. In John 5:44, Jesus rebukes the Pharisees, saying, "How can you believe when you seek honor that comes from another, and do not seek the honor that comes only from God?" In Matthew 23:5, he outright says that everything these Pharisees are doing, they're doing to be seen by men. They're doing to receive glory from men. This misplaced zeal leads them to overturn God's law in place of tradition, in verses 8 and 9. In Matthew 9:11 through 3, the Pharisees confront Jesus, asking him why he's, eating with tax collectors and sinners. And he says, it's not the well who need a doctor, or those who think they're well, but the sick. And he tells them to go and learn what this means. "I desire mercy and not sacrifice." This sacrifice that he's referring to, or that I'm referring to, at least in this circumstance, is that of an outward works righteousness, right? I'm righteous because all these other people see me being righteous, and I'm righteous because everybody knows I'm righteous. Yeah, all these things I'm doing to be seen by men. I'm at the best places in these synagogues, and I'm greeted by all these other rabbis. Everybody knows I'm holy, right? The issue with this, namely, is that if it's about what other people are seeing, what happens when I'm by myself? If it's about what other people are seeing, what does it matter what goes on in my heart? In Micah 6:8, God tells us plainly what He wants from us: to seek justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. So I want to get on why we can't receive honor from God when we're seeking that from men. Proverbs 25:27 states, "It's not good to eat much honey, nor is it glory to seek one's own glory." Um, when we seek the honor that comes from men, or the glory that comes from men, or when we're doing things to be seen by men, right? Essentially, what we're doing is we're conforming our deeds to a standard of men. This guy has this standard, so I conform my deeds and my words to this dude's standard. The only problem is men, being men, have a standard that fluctuates. Day to day, what makes somebody happy might not be what made them happy yesterday, because the condition of their heart is circumstantial. It's not so with God. What God approves of is always the same thing. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Another issue with this is what Soren Kierkegaard touches on in Purity of Heart. He says, "Whoever therefore wills this honor, the honor that comes from men, or fears this contempt, is not merely double-minded, but thousand-minded, and at variance with himself. In this life he must grovel in order to attain honor." That's what I was talking about when I said, conforming your actions and your words to something that men would approve of. You're groveling, in order to attain honor, he must flatter his enemies in order to attain honor. When he must woo the favor of those he despises in order to attain honor. When he must betray the one whom he respects in order to retain honor. For to attain honor means to despise oneself after one has attained the pinnacle of honor, and yet to tremble before any change. Man, although this was written in, prior to the 1900 or the year 1900, cuts deep, man. When he mentions that portion of to attain honor means to despise oneself after one has attained it. How many people in this day and age can sympathize with that statement? When people are going out and doing all these terrible things, on the internet because, they want to be internet famous, or, groveling before men and doing things that they themselves despise in order to win approval from men. And then after they have said approval and they go and they have to deal with their own conscience of what have I done, they hate themselves. And it's very accurate. And so not only is the reward disease, does it affect us in this way where it causes us to hate ourselves, but when we're doing those things, we're out of alignment with what God would have us do. And so I want to touch on one more thing from Purity of Heart. The judgment of the masses is like foam on water. Nonsense. Though loudly proclaimed, it's blind. Though sharply decisive, impossible to follow, because it changes more swiftly than a woman changes color. Woo! Man. It's accurate. The opinion of the world is constantly changing. And that's kind of what I was trying to touch on earlier when I said, when we try to conform ourselves to the opinions of men, you're never going to find an absolute standard when it comes to men. The only place that objective truth is found is in God. And so I want to encourage you today to seek the honor that comes from God, because it's the only one that matters. God bless.